Hi, I'm JJ. Welcome to Big Book Summer. I finally finished Winners, The Winners. It's the last in the Beartown Trilogy, and I don't know why I put these books off till this year, but I finally read them, and I can now say emphatically that this is my favorite series ever. It just has so much richness, so much emotion. I cried. I had my heart broken and mended, and I just felt this sense of understanding and completeness reading these books, and as well as crying, laughing, and just feeling the profoundness of an epic like this. And so, yes, it is a book about hockey, but these books are not sports books. They're not hockey books. They are about the human condition. They are about community. They are about hockey itself as the sport that divides the town and causes violence within the two competing cities. It can stand in for any kind of anything that divides a town. So politics, classism, racism. It dealt with heavy topics like suicide, grief, homophobia, rape, and all these characters that make up these two cities. It primarily focuses on Beartown, but it shows the division in their nearby town head as they're competing for resources, competing to be the top hockey league, competing for jobs, competing for funding for their sports clubs, and for whether it's going to be building different schools or hospitals or whatever they're competing for. And so hockey is just a stand-in. So it's such a human story that I think anyone can get into, as long as you are willing to do the work, because each book is long, and this book itself is 670 pages. And so it is a lot of time spent among these people, and you really get to know them. They're not black and white, good and evil. They're complex humans who make mistakes, who try to redeem themselves, who have had a really hard hand dealt to them and try to overcome. And like I said before, this deals very much with classism, with sexism and gender, and also with just a division that just runs so deep at sometimes people don't even realize why they're hating, just that their parents always did. And even if they're not involved in sports whatsoever, these towns are so divided that there's even like Romeo and Juliet stories and stuff like that. And so you have a little bit of romance. You have a fabulous exploration of a marriage that their daughter in the first book was raped, and prior to, they had the most beautiful, fantastic marriage that everyone aspired to, and then it slowly pulls them apart just because both of them are grieving so much, and there's other issues at work here, other losses that they are experiencing and trying to deal with. And so you see these people who genuinely love and care about each other slowly and heartbreakingly drifting and picking up more time at work. Hold on, my glasses are fogging up just because it's so hot in here. But they're drifting, being let down by the pressures around them, being let down by their sense of failure as parents, and how they fail to protect their children, and just this real human story about this marriage. And it is so beautiful. In this one especially, you get to see how far they drifted, and as they slowly start possibly coming together with this hopefulness and this just I mean, I dog-eared passages, not just about their relationship, but about relationships in general, whether it's parents and children, siblings. The sibling storyline is very prevalent in this book particular, but it's siblings. It's about schoolmates, teammates, like I said, fathers and sons, fathers and daughters, mothers and sons, mothers and daughters, and then the parents themselves, the parents' relationships with other parents on their kids' team versus the rival team. You have just so much richness and depth and exploration of a town at the verge of being something great, but with the history and struggles and hatreds and biases and all the toxic things that destroy communities creeping up every time to try to pull them back down, try to pull them back under, and the hope of a city rising above it. Well, two cities rising above it as they have to learn to forgive each other, but also just how the sins of the past continuously affect the present, and how parents' rivalries or these hurts that never got truly forgiven or developed or even acknowledged continue to grow and fester and destroy this. You have I get emotional just thinking about it, and not just the hard stuff, but just how wonderfully it was described in the connections amongst each of these characters. You root for every love story. You get heartbroken for every time one of them is let down, or every time you feel the grief, you feel the pain and the anger and the resentment. You feel the hope, and you feel the humor, that despite all this, you still get to have this love and hope and just happiness every once in a while in the midst of all the sorrow. So they're heavy books, not just physically, but they're so worth the effort and so worth the journey. And I did have to take a break. Like I read one, the first and second book in January and February, and then I'm reading this one now, just because as much as I wanted to be surrounded and held within this story, I didn't want it to end. I didn't want to be done with it and then just have to say goodbye. But I also needed the time to digest and to feel and to know that it's not just recency bias. Like I said, I read the other ones in January and February, and they have still stuck with me. I had originally, just because of the heavy subject matter, I didn't rate them 5 stars because it took me a little while to understand his way of writing, because he writes like this omnipresent third person, and so some of it is just like very sparse in the way he writes, and I usually don't like all the flowery stuff unless I'm in the mood for it. So I should have really enjoyed this, but I think it just took me a while to just understand, because taking that distance and that sparsity, I thought it was going to keep me from identifying with the characters. But then as I started getting further and further into that first book and then into the series, absolutely not. He delves into every, even just a minor character, gets so much depth and love from him. And so after finishing this one, I went ahead and gave those each 5 stars, because they deserved it. And now that I've taken the time, and like I said, I just keep going back and thinking of it. I have so many passages marked just because how powerful and thought-provoking some of his sentences are, in the way that he understands human emotion, in the way that he understands the psychology of people. He dealt with the aftermath of the rape very well. He deals with grief very well. He deals with violence in every aspect, whether it's emotional, physical, psychological, just the crumbling of a society, and how the adults who are just continuing the hatred that they have always known and passing it on to their children, and how if the children are meant to just live and be, that perhaps there wouldn't be as much violence. It's usually as any hate is learned, but so is violence. And so some of the best, most compassionate characters were victims of some sort of abuse in their life. But then on the flip side, some of them that make the most horrific choices also were result from that same kind of violence. And so just understanding, like, you're trying to understand why people do what they do, and understanding that it, just like any story, you kind of get all sides of it. It will show you how one way it's taken, like a single event is taken this way by one town and this way by another town, who have their own biases and their own prejudices and stuff infused into their perception of the world. And so when an event happens, they're taking all of that baggage with them. And so you get to see how that corrupts. And the first book, when it was dealing with the aftermath of a rape, and then when it comes to light, and I know some of these are a bit on the spoiler side, but I feel like you can't really talk about the depth of it without understanding like why he was talking about some of that stuff. And so there's this one scene where once it's they finally realize that they should have been believing the girl all along, they changed their narrative, and they say that they did. They say that they always knew that that boy was evil. They always knew there was something wrong with him. And they essentially just rewrite history. And seeing that in the present, in our society, and how it is done, and how we want to rewrite things to benefit us, just reading it there and seeing it done with characters that you care about, or characters that you thought that you hated, and then slowly get redeemed a little bit, just because everybody is so complex, and not the rapist, but like the people's reaction to that, they're able to finally get redeemed. And so you just get this sense of the people that you thought were evil, or the people that you thought did the wrong things and definitely need to try to fix them. You get to see that their whole arc, and understand why they made some of those choices. And then you also get the ones who are the good guys, who something is revealed about them, and they're not as great as you thought they were. And so that complexity is what makes us human, but it is also what makes a society complex. It is what makes diversity amazing. It is what makes this book among my absolute favorites. And so I'm really glad that I got to participate in Big Book Summer with this book specifically, just because otherwise it would have been buried amongst my reading of the month, and then my year-end wrap-up, which it still is going to be doing. But I thought that it absolutely deserves a video of its own, just so it doesn't get left behind. And I know that that's not at a risk here, because so many people already read Frederick Backman, and his books are already so famous. So he's not at risk of, like, kind of being a hidden gem or anything. but I just didn't want to bury my thoughts and try to wrap up a short video as I'm talking about so many other wonderful books that I've read this month. So I'm very excited. And I could have included this in Summer of Sport as well, but I didn't want to, just because, like I said, it's absolutely a book about hockey, but it is not a hockey book. And so I didn't feel like putting it in the Summer of Sport tag and not the big book summer tag was the right choice. And maybe I'll use both tags here because it does absolutely fit with both. But you don't have to know much about hockey to enjoy this book, even though it's very prevalent in hockey. And you don't have to even really be a sports fan to love these books. I am absolutely a sports fan. I am a hockey fan, especially the women's hockey league we have here in the United States. But I still think that there's so much to be taken away by this story and by this entire series. One of my favorite characters, I'm not going to spoil it by saying who my actual favorite character is, because who my actually favorite characters are absolutely break my heart. But one of my favorite characters is the female coach that gets introduced in book 2, and it is also featured prevalently at the beginning of this book. She is a very different kind of character because she's not likable or unlikable. She's just direct. She doesn't have time for all the crap between the players, between the towns, between the everybody else involved in this community and in this society. She just likes hockey. Like, that's all. And she reminds me of so many people who are like, take the separate the art from the artist, or all the times that you see with athletes and stuff, like, shut up and shoot the ball, shut up and hit the ball, like, they don't want them to be political. And so, like, I don't know if it's like a kind of a mimicry of that or not, because despite the fact that she only cares about hockey and she doesn't have the I don't even know, like, doesn't have the patience for humans, especially humans that don't play hockey. Some of her closest relationships, as strange as those relationships are not people immediately involved in hockey. She was really close, or is really close to the bar owner, even though she's not a drinker. And she is also really close to somebody who used to be associated with hockey but is not anymore. And so it just shows how complex a life is for somebody who doesn't, who otherwise only cares about a sport. And so how it is so impossible sometimes just to separate and just be like, this is the thing I love. I don't care about anything else that affects it. I'm not going to get political or anything like that, because those lives still affect her. Those people still affect her. And whether or not she wants to be part of it or take part in all this violence or bigotry within the community, it surrounds her, so she has to be affected by it. And so what I like about her as a character, though, is her awkwardness. Because she only talks hockey, she doesn't really know how to connect with a whole lot of people. And I absolutely, like, identify her in so many ways. Identify with her in so many ways, just because when I get passionate about something, it's usually something so, like, down a rabbit hole that I wandered, and it's completely unique and different from what everybody around me loves. But I get that, dog with a bone feeling towards it, and, like, only want to talk about it, only want to do it, especially with books and stuff. if I love a book, like everybody in my life, even if they're not readers, are gonna have to hear about that book, which is why I started this YouTube channel to begin with. So I absolutely get it. And I also get the fact that, like, she comes into this town as a woman who wants to coach hockey, and she has to coach a boys team. And so when you're dealing with all these prejudices, not only are you doing, like I said, with classism and racism, but you're also dealing with the sexism. Like, can she coach? Is she even good enough? And she has to prove herself over and over and over. And that is just like an allegory for the rest of the book, because that's essentially what every person in this town is doing. They make a wrong choice, they have to prove themselves that was a mistake. They make the right choice, they have to prove themselves that they don't necessarily assume or think that they're better than anybody else. They just choose that path. And so there's also, like, you're a hockey player and you're considered the best, and you have all this weight on your shoulders that you now have to bear and carry your team, and you can't mess up. You can't falter under that weight. And if you do, you have to start from scratch and build yourself up. And so it also seems like she is a direct representation of that commentary about how expectations can be just as disastrous as just making assumptions that somebody can't do something just because they're poor, or just because they're from on the wrong side of the city, or just because one of the star players is not from that community and from somewhere completely on the other side of the world, who didn't even speak their language when they first came there. And so all these expectations that we set on people, whether we have them too high or we expect only disappointment, that is on us. That is on our biases. That is on our prejudice and past beliefs and our value system. And to impose that on people that never asked for it, I feel like that's not a main theme in this story, but I feel like it was so well achieved in this story, showing how that's on us as a society and as individual people, to not put that kind of those feelings on other people. It was said best in this book when with the father whose daughter was raped in the first one. And it mentions something about how she understood that he was upset with her, but if he was disappointed with her, that's not her responsibility, that's his. And that, he says it a lot better, and there's too many pages that I dog-eared to try to find exactly where, how he said it. But that just was so profound to me, because it is all the stuff that we bring to relationships, whether it's parent or children, or just in society in general, what we bring to the table, that baggage, that is our baggage. That is not the baggage of the people that we interact with. But unfortunately, they're the ones who have to deal with it. So we have to fix that. We have to deal with it, so that we're not continuously taking it in every interaction that we go through. And so for a hockey book, for a trilogy that's primarily using sports, I think, as a metaphor for much deeper things within society, I think that's my biggest takeaway. Is as much as I try to continuously improve and learn from my ignorance, learn my blind spots and try to fix them, that I have a long ways to go, because so much of this stood out to me. And not just the characters who I will grieve, the characters who I just want to hug, the characters that I absolutely wish I could be real life friends with. As much as this book and the characters and the story affected me, the things that I'm going to take away from it, I think are going to last with me much longer than I originally anticipated. So this book, 5 stars, the entire series, 5 stars for each book. They're definitely worth the read. Don't save them for your next big book summer. Read them when you're in the headspace to get drawn into a most beautiful, wonderful, heartbreaking, heart-wrenching, real world. And as much as I would like to say enjoy, it's hard to say that you enjoy a book that rips your heart out. But just enjoy the process. The breaking of your heart and the rebuilding of your heart and the hopefulness it leaves you with. So anyway, I'm sorry to get emotional. I'm sorry that my glasses keep fogging up. And I am not sorry to be sharing my choice with you. So the winners, book 3 in the Beartown Trilogy by Frederick Backman. I don't know if it's Backman or Bachman as much as he's popular and stuff. I hear different people say different things, so I'm not quite sure. But definitely check these out. You will not regret it. Thank you.